Hello and welcome to So Many Games, independent video game coverage from a passionate group of people. Please check out everything we do at somanygames.co.uk. My name is Jason, and for episode 20 of the podcast, I have something slightly different for you all with two featured interviews. In the first interview, I speak with Josh and developer Jakub, who is behind the upcoming Balatro-like Feed the Scorchpot. Not only do we find out more on the game from Jakub, but we also learn more from Josh about changing Indieformer's direction from an indie game curator to a publisher. The second interview features Paul James, a games QA tester. I've been wanting to talk with Paul about QA in games for some time, and I'm thrilled to have him on the show to throw some light on these unsung heroes of the gaming world. But before we get to this episode's interviews, I'd like to ask that if you enjoy this podcast, then we would really appreciate a glorious 5-star rating and review on your preferred platform. It would really help with our discoverability and getting the podcast in front of as many people as possible. Also, please tell anyone you think that would be interested in this podcast or our work. We would really, really appreciate it. With that said, let's jump into the first interview with Josh and Jakub. I did have some distortion issues in some places with Jakub's audio, which I've done my best to clean up, but unfortunately some has remained. But it's only in a handful of places, and it does not distract from Jakub speaking. So with that said, please enjoy our first interview of the episode with Josh and Jakub.
I'm Josh. I am from Indieformer, a game publisher. I was publishing Feed the Scorchpot, and I love indie games, have done for most of my life, and I've been running Indieformer for 12 or 13 years, and I also run a local gym across the road as well, so I'm in there most days working people out.
And Jakub?
Well, I'm a historian by trade. I have master degrees in history, but I did it for I think 3 years, and then I decided that it's just not for me. So, and I tried several stuff. Up to today, I work as a freelance graphic designer, but I think it was more than 2 years ago. I just one day woke up and decided I should try making a game. And ever since that, I was just at it. It was like, I always tell that it's the best hobbies I ever had. So like you get to learn all of this new stuff, and like it's really stimulating my brain. So yeah, so nowadays I consider myself a solo dev together with my wife.
Cool. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to learning more about your journey and more about Feed the Scorchpot, which we're obviously here to talk about. But before we delve into that a bit deeper, Josh, I'd just like to learn a bit more about Indieformer. The concept of Indieformer from its birth was to just highlight indie games and just to try and get as many out in front of people as possible. But why did you feel that was so important at the time to try and start that and to kick Indieformer off?
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm 30 now, and it started 12 or 13 years ago when I was 17 or 18, and my friend actually was kind of getting into indie games, and I was too. You know, you're kind of at that end of high school, and you're in that discovery phase. You're like, oh, what's out there? So you start playing games that aren't quite mainstream, and we both kind of came to the agreement that just indie games weren't getting enough press, and we thought we could do something about that. And I was studying film and TV at the time, and he loved writing, so I thought, well, let's pair up. Let's make some YouTube videos. And there were only a handful of people really covering them properly back then. So that's kind of where Indieformer started. It was a YouTube channel where every month we'd wrap up 5 games that we thought were great. We'd wrap up 5 Kickstarter projects that we think you should be backing. And that was, in essence, Indieformer. And we did that for 2 or 3 years. And week in, week out, but month in, month out. And then we had little specials in there and stuff. So it was mainly just our own interest of, there are great games out there that don't have the budget to be seen, and we can spend a bit of time ourselves to hopefully give them some traction.
Yeah, it's a noble cause. It's one of the reasons why so many games were started, just for the same kind of reasons, to just try and get indie games out in front of as many people as we possibly could, just because there's just so many of them, especially nowadays, that you know, a lot of them get swallowed up and people just don't see them.
Yep.
So it's a very noble cause, and I very fully agree, obviously. But obviously, Indieformer grew a lot of traction over the time, and you got quite a large audience eventually, didn't you?
Yes, for the YouTube channel, we ended up getting to about 25,000 subscribers. I think that was kind of our peak, or maybe a little below it. And we were on a good roll. And it kind of, again, in that very early phase of your life, like late teens, early 20s, where we're now finishing uni and kind of figuring out what we want to do. And we're like, oh, is this what we want to do? Do we want to make YouTube videos for the rest of our life? Like, we can really start to push this as there's traction here. And we kind of were like, maybe not. Maybe let's pull this back. And so we decided to pull right back on it and stop doing videos and just chill, because it was taking up a lot of our time and it was a big commitment. And as the thing was starting to scale, we were like, we just haven't even started our careers yet. And this was something that we were doing on the side. So we put it on the side and we kind of just started our own careers. And Lawrence, who was the original person who started with me, ended up doing his own thing and continuing on. And I bought Indieformer back as YouTube videos by myself. And I decided to go hard at it for a year and make 3 to 4 videos a month, doing the same kind of thing. And then I expanded into doing videos that were more industry news, so that people could find out about news in indie games as well, not just what was released, but also what was being made or what was updating, or how games had gone. And then also trying to do like a bit of a job bulletin. And as that sounds, that's a lot of work. And it didn't last. And so I did that for like a year, and then I put it to rest. And I was like, cool, by myself was way too hard. And then I waited a couple, and that was 2018, I think. I stopped doing it then. And then 2 years ago, I had an idea at work, and I was like, why did it only have to be YouTube videos? Why couldn't it have been simpler than that? Like, yes, I don't have the time to make YouTube videos every single week now or write them, because they were taking, I think, 30 hours of video, which is just too much time. I really put the time into research, write them, edit them properly as well, do the graphics and the animation. Even though that was too much, 2 years ago, I thought, well, why can't it just be a newsletter? Like, who's doing newsletters today that show games every single month that are released? And I honestly couldn't think of any. And still, I thought, given my background in film and TV, I was like, there's still a spot here for very well curated stuff that looks good and looks professional. There's still lots of people out there doing good stuff and just sharing indie games. But I thought, well, I think there's something here that can still elevate this place, even still after 12 or 13 years. So I brought it back as a newsletter and pretty much started from zero again. I had maybe 2 or 3 people that had subscribed in that first month that I'd carried along over the 12 or 13 years, and recognized the name. And then that slowly grew and grew. And not to a very big audience, but we've got about 2,000 people on the reader list at the moment. And one thing that was always in the back of my head the whole time doing Indieformer was, I don't I don't want to just stop at talking about indie games, because I am someone who loves playing games. I'm a creative. I like to get involved with my hands on things. And if the opportunity ever came up to make my own game and I had an idea good enough that I thought was good enough to make, I'd do that or publish them. And so that kind of leads us into where we're sitting right now with Feed the Scorchpot, and actually a couple of other games as well, where you kind of take a punt and you're like, well, this person didn't have a publisher attached. The game looks really good. It's something that I think I can put my name behind. So you have a couple of conversations, and next thing you know, we're a year in, about to release a game, first published, first developed, all from an email back and forth, because it was like, I think talking about indie games is okay, but plenty of people do it. And now there's a lot of people do it, and there's more and more people doing it. And I'm like, well, at some point, I end up just being the content game, which is a really hard game to play. And I've done it, and I'm not sure I want to do that again. So now I'm picking the next hardest thing, I guess, to do is publish games and figure out how that works. But it's definitely been a very fulfilling elevation of Indieformer and what we can do.
Yeah, it's very brave to go from what you were doing to actually publishing games. It's a very admirable thing to do.
My last 10 years is in film and television distribution. So I've worked in quite a similar version here, but just like film and TV, where you kind of take a film house's TV show or movie or documentary, and then the sales team will go and distribute that and find people. So this is kind of adjacent to that. So I kind of understood what needs to happen, but still, even that, there's so many things in this industry specifically, that is different from film and TV. But I thought I had enough skills to make it happen, and I was going to try everything I possibly could, or still can, to make Feed the Scorchpot as successful as possible.
And Jakub, with Feed the Scorchpot is your first published game.
Not published yet.
No, very close though, very close.
Very close.
Obviously, a brave move for you, Jakub. Coming over to let Indieformer publish your game. Was there any hesitation in that? Were you just happy that someone was interested enough in your game to help get the game out there?
It's actually funny how it all came together. It's almost exactly. I published my Steam page on the 1st of September last year, so it's almost a year. And I wasn't looking for a publisher at the time at all. Like, I was just focused on game. I was okay, let's see where this goes. It doesn't have to be anything serious. It's still just a hobby. I was at the parental leave at the time, taking care of my two kids. On September, the younger one went to preschool. So suddenly I had like eight hours a day to work on the game, which was amazing. But like I said, I wasn't looking for the publisher at the time. I was just winging it. Let's see where this goes. And I was quite sure I don't want any like big publishing studio because it feels just intimidating. I'm a solo dev. I'm self-taught. I don't know what I'm doing. So having some big company to work with felt really, really intimidating. So I published my Steam page on 1st of September, and I did a very basic press outreach. Like I picked, I think, 20 different sites, and one of them was Indieformer. So I wrote a mail to Josh like, hey, here's my game. I just published a Steam page. If you could write up some article about it, that would be great. The next day, I got a reply from Josh. Oh, the game looks great. I'd gladly write an article, but if you're interested, we could maybe work something more because we're just getting into a publishing business. And I was like, okay, I just published this Steam page. What is happening? And I pretty much wrote, okay, that's amazing. Give me at least a week to process this. And after a week, we started talking, and I realized that this is exactly what I need. Someone who is just getting into this stuff, who is on the same level, if I can say it like that, as me, so we can learn this stuff together, work through this together, and it turned out really great so far.
Perfect timing, by the sounds of things.
Match made in heaven.
Yeah.
Almost.
So, was it ever scary in the back of, or a thought bit behind your head, Jakub? Because it's like, I hear about some publishers and they like to, get their fingers stuck right into the game and try and make you change things and stuff like that. I don't think that's the kind of service that Indieformer would supply to you. Has it been a good relationship so far between you guys?
Excellent. Like you said, one thing I was scared of was some big publisher coming in and telling me to remake the whole game so it would be more marketable or anything. Like, it was not something I was willing to do. But I was very aware of my experience or lack of it. So when we agreed with Josh and Clem to work on this, I was fully open to their suggestions, and I can honestly say that they helped me make the game so much better. When you're in the zone and just making the stuff, you don't see it from the outside, and this was exactly the perspective I needed. So for me, it was 100 improvement on the game.
Great to hear. Lovely stuff. Yeah, and it's interesting you pick up on that, Jakub, because I've heard that before, where developers are so engrossed in making the game, they don't quite see, the effect that it might have on players and on the game itself. So it's great that you're getting that back and forth to understand that properly. Because I think a lot of games have released where the developers haven't realised this, especially a lot of self-published ones. So it feels like your game is going to be hitting good levels of understanding for players.
Well, we were testing since November, yeah, and we always have at least few new players playing the game, giving feedback, and honestly, the feedback from players is invaluable. It was so useful to us to make the game actually. For example, what I like to talk about is the tutorial. I have so much trouble making the tutorial. I know how to make the stuff, but I don't know how to explain it. So we worked together on a simple tutorial, like there's a dragon and he's telling the player what to do. We made it and then tested it out, and players were lost. Like they couldn't follow written instructions. Like it's normal. People can't follow written instructions. So after a whole lot of feedback, we went back and completely remade it, and I think now it works much better. But if it weren't for the feedback from indie former, from the testers, like iterating on it over and over again, it wouldn't be nearly as much as understandable as it is now.
I think just to add on that, I think the testers have been, yeah, like Jakub said, literally invaluable. Like, yes, we kind of helped Jakub sort the game out before we got it out to people, and even with a small amount of testers, yes, we're still giving plenty of feedback. But the second you get those people in, they're breaking things you didn't know could be broken. They're testing things you didn't know could be tested, and you realize very quickly that many hands make quick work, and we couldn't have found all of the things that we have, and still, even with updates now, we're going, oh, there's this, and like we just don't even have the time ourselves. So the testers have been absolutely amazing, and I think just on the tutorial as well, it was the most important thing that we did was we did a little convention here in Melbourne, and for 2 days straight, I watched people physically play the tutorial, and that was a very different experience because it's a very hypersensitive environment. People are coming into your booth, they're playing the game, and then they're out. So it's pretty much as distracted as they're ever going to be. And if that tutorial can't hit in that setting, then it's not clear enough. And I came back to Jakub and I said, look, we need to change this thing. And then Jakub did a little event in his hometown. He's like, I know exactly what you're talking about now. Watching people play that, it's like, I know exactly. It's so different to just getting feedback online when you can physically see how people react to the game in real time. That's like the most valuable thing that has happened is being in person for that tutorial. Otherwise, I don't think we would have changed it much.
That's really interesting that you say that, Josh, because I kind of learned that aspect of developers or publishers taking a game to a show when I was at the London Games Festival in April and the New Game Plus event. And I was speaking with a developer from Saltstone Studios who's making the Hearth and Harbour. And he was saying exactly the same thing. There's two reasons why we come to these shows. One is to show off the game and hopefully get more traction, get more people interested in it. But it's also to see how people play the game. And like he was saying, like he's learned so much over those 2 days and he's took so many notes back to the studio because he's learned so much from just watching people play. It just seems like such an invaluable asset to make sure that happens for games. It's really, I didn't really realize that that aspect was so important from a show.
It's so important because you learn very quickly what the player expects. So we've tried to make a tutorial that weaves the player this way and this way and this way, but we don't know when we say something what the player really wants to do, or once they've clicked this thing, what do they want to do after that? And we can try and move them around. And especially for something like Feed the Scorchpot, it was actually quite difficult because it's a very busy board. If you give that to someone all at once, they don't know what to do. And that was one of the pieces of feedback. It's like, we're giving the player everything at once here. They have no idea what to do. We need to be using zooms, or we need to be using vignettes. We need to give them the board piece by piece when it's relevant to them because there's so much information here. They've got no idea what's going on. And learning what the player expects from the game. And I even had people come up. They launched the game. They go, nope, I'm leaving. Bye. It was just, yeah, like feedback like that is straight away like, okay, like that's one person, I get it. But even for the hypersensitive environment that it is, we need to be able to be welcoming to players as much as possible.
But Jakub, we've hinted on Feed the Scorchpot, but what actually is Feed the Scorchpot? What's the basic concept behind the game?
So the easiest way to describe it is like it's a popular genre right now, the Balatro-like, right? So Balatro was a huge hit. Everybody enjoyed putting together poker hands and getting the dopamine from the big numbers. And yeah, so basically I played Balatro, it was addicting, and I thought to myself, okay, I like this. I don't like poker. What else how can I take this formula and make it into another game? So I looked to other games, what I like, and I love board games. I Actually, before I got into video games, I was thinking about making board games. Just a thought occurred to me. Okay, let's make both. Like let's make a board game, take the formula that works in Balatro and try to apply it to another game. And okay, let's put in a dragon for good measure so it's more attractive. Like this was basically my thought process when I was designing the game. So yeah, it's a board game for but played on a PC with a lot of high numbers, a lot of combinations, a lot of synergies, and a lot of dopamine rewards when you get those numbers up.
Okay, yeah, I can see why the tutorial is very important now. But what are you doing in the game? You know, I was looking at the Steam page, and is it basically you're having to feed a dragon as the basic like story element of the game over a 20-year period? Is this correct?
Yeah. So the story is the island is in danger. There are sea creatures around. There are pirates. There are even worse things. And dragon comes to the island and says, "I will protect the island in exchange for 20 years of dinner service." So now you have to feed the dragon. You have to harvest food, cook it, and give it to the dragon. So he is there to protect you. I originally didn't want to stress the story element of it. Like I thought, okay, players probably just want to focus on the mechanics on the game itself, and I tend to sometimes get a bit overboard with the narratives of my game. But together with Josh, I think we found some sweet spot in the middle where there's enough narrative. I try to make the game funny. Like there are a lot of references, a lot of jokes, puns, and we weaved it together into this sort of fantasy medieval setting where the dragon is always there, commenting on the cooking, on how we're doing. He's angry when you are not doing anything, and there are a lot of snarky comments like that.
I think just to chime in there as well, just on the story, because Jakub kind of alluded to it. When we actually came on and started working with Jakub, there was no real story behind it. It was there's 20 years. That's the kind of gist I want to kind of go with. And again, thank you players for playing. People couldn't quite understand why they were doing things. Why do I have to cook recipes? Why do I have to roll dice? What is the shop? What like they were asking those types of questions, and we're like, people aren't invested here. They don't understand what the game is, and even though it works as like a board game, those original players weren't getting past the basic mechanics of the game because they didn't understand why. And we learned very, very quickly that even a basic story puts it into perspective for the player. Dragons come on board. He's making you play his game now. They're his dice. It's his shop. So you buy from his hoard, and then you feed him for 20 years. Contract's up. If you want to continue, you can continue. Very, very simple, but now players don't ask those questions at all because they understand why they're there, and it holds that suspension of disbelief of the world.
They still ask questions. Like a few days ago, someone asked me, "Okay, but how is he still getting more hungry? Is it like a curse or something? I want to know more."
They're the good kind of questions. Yeah.
Yeah, because like I mean, the question that comes to the top of my mind, based on this narrative, is like, what happens after 20 years? Does the dragon just fly off somewhere else, or he just hangs about, or is that a spoiler?
No, it's not a spoiler. Like if you pass 20 years, you won the game. Okay, good. You can go back to menu, start a new game, or you can continue. You could keep feeding the dragon. If you make it to year 30, you get the achievement Stockholm Syndrome. And you can continue and continue.
Okay.
I think the highest year was 75, I think.
Oh, wow.
Like those years, the numbers are like in quintillions. So
yeah, I think the kind of very broad idea here was deal with the dragon, deal with the devil. So the dragon does give you an exit at 20 years ago. Great, your island's pretty good. You could leave. I could leave now, and you'll be fine. But the option to continue is there. And if that's the case, he's like, well, now I'm not going to leave. Your island's going to grow and grow and grow and grow, but I'm going to stick around as long as I'm here and the island's still growing. You feed me, but until then. And then it's a bit like, yeah, you get a little greedy by continuing, but you don't get rid of the dragon after that. So that's kind of the broad overview there of the story.
That's good to know then, because like I feel like if you haven't been able to explore all the synergies or like all the we're going to touch upon in a minute, all the different kind of recipes that you could probably make, you've got that option to carry on to try and experience those as well, but after the 20 years. So that's cool to know. And Jakub, you state Balatro obviously as a inspiration behind the game, but is it a deck builder? Is there cards involved, or is it literally all dice?
We were talking about this a few days ago, like what actually is a deck builder? Like you're putting it together. Does it have to be an actual deck that you put together to be a deck builder? Because I would argue that Balatro is not a deck builder. Like you get a deck and you can somehow modify it, but it's not a deck builder in a sense like Slay the Spire or similar games. But there is a deck in a game, but it's implemented in a different way. Like we were talking about how to make the game more replayable. Just beside, like you enter the game, you have a run, you continue for 20 years or how many you want, but how to make it more replayable and how to make special conditions like challenges so that players can undertake. And that's when the decks came in. So when you play the game through the meta progression, you get to unlock the deck. And in the deck, you can put in cards which allow you to modify your starting conditions. Like, okay, you don't want to start with 2 farmsteads. Okay, you can put in workshop. Or you don't want these dice. Okay, pick another different set of dice. You want more money at the start. Okay, take something away and put in more money. So now players get to build a deck that defines their run from the start. I was a bit cautious about it. I wasn't sure how it, because it's hard to balance all of this. But when we've given to testers, they had such a blast with it. Like they came up with so many crazy combinations, and now it feels like a totally different game when players have the option to do more. Like not just start from vanilla, but give them options. And I think it works pretty well.
So, we've mentioned the recipes, which sounds like the main part of the game to try and feed different stuff to the dragons. Can you tell us a little bit more about the recipe mechanic in the game and how that works?
So, 3 main phases of the game. First, you harvest. You have to roll the dice, which determine which tiles harvest and which resources you get from that. Like, okay, you harvest fish or you harvest dairy, grain, etc. Then you click harvest, and that puts you into the second phase where you set up your recipes. Like, okay, I have a recipe for cake, I have a recipe for pizza, I have a recipe for there's a English food recipe. Like English food works only if you don't put spice in it. And so each recipe works in a similar way. Like again, I'm going to make the comparison to Balatro-like like a Joker. Like it has a specific conditions and gives you specific bonuses. And you have to play around these recipes, harvest the right ingredients for them to function and for them to synergize together. And then you activate them, click cook, and it starts putting the numbers in there.
That's cool. Sounds interesting. How wacky results have you seen so far from your playtests with the recipes?
Oh, it's so funny to see players come up with all these strategies. Like when I was making the game, I was like planting seeds, right? I was like, okay, this maybe could work with this maybe could work with this. Let's see what happens. But the testers, they came up with so many strategies. It was amazing to watch. Like they found out a way to play the game without rolling dice, without harvesting ingredients, without recipes. Like anything you think of, they found a way to do it, and like that's great. That's exactly what I wanted from the game.
What does it feel like though when you see something happen in your game that you just didn't think was possible? It must be quite wild.
Yeah. How did you do that? Like,
yeah, okay, exactly.
But, if it's fun, it's okay. I leave it there. If it's not fun, like players have found strategies to optimize the fun out of the game, which is not what I want. So that's usually when I step in and tweak stuff to nerf something to make it feel better. But like the fun, that's the goal, right? So the players need to have fun.
And obviously, there's dice involved in the game. How does the dice work, and how does that implement into the game, into the recipe builder? Sorry.
So in my mind, the dice were the primary mini game of the game. Like when you go into game, what do you do? What are the stakes? So you roll the dice, and you can keep a die, or you can reroll it. And now you have to think, okay, do I keep this die and go with the less worse outcome, or do I try to reroll it to get exactly what I want? So this is what the player does. Like he always has to come like, okay, is this good enough, or should I try and risk rolling the dice again? But I gave the players a lot of tools to make it better for themselves. They can chisel the dice, so they can have, if they want, they can make a die with six sixes, for example.
Yeah, because I noticed it was the game features like over 20 different types of dice. Is that right?
I think it's 21 at this point, I think.
Yeah, so there's quite a lot.
There are 21 dice, 84 recipes, and 64 different buildings at this point, I think, roughly.
And you don't plan on implementing any more before the game releases?
No, not before the game release. I'm done with the content now. I have just to polish everything, test everything over and over again, and hopefully everything works on the release.
Also, like obviously, I'm always very admirable to people who attempt to hand draw their games, and this is one of them. What was that process like for you? Was that fun?
Well, I'm not the one doing it. It's my wife's work.
Mm-hmm.
So I often call myself a solo dev, which is not true because there's two of us. There's me and my wife, and she's handling all the art side of the game. So she works in a museum as her full-time job, but she always does illustrations for exhibitions and for publications, and it's really beautiful what she can make. And I was like, okay, let's put this to good use. Like before I got to fit the Scorchpot, I was working on a different game, and it was pixel art game. I was doing the pixel art, and it wasn't half bad, but but I thought to myself, okay, I have this amazing, talented illustrator at home. Well, let's make her work. And so, yeah, we brainstormed what kind of art style we want to go for. And the big consideration is we have to make this feasible for a single person to do. Like we can be only so much detail we put into this game. And so we settled on this medieval manuscript style, which is it looks good, it's colorful, it works together, and it is actually manageable in one person to draw.
Yeah, it looks really great. I love the colours and the artistic style that's been chosen. Your wife's very talented.
I do want to add in there that the art style is exactly what stopped me in that first email. When I saw that image of that Jacob had put in the email, I was like, it caught my attention straight away because like I said, it made me stop scrolling, and I was like, oh wow, this is 100% unique. I haven't seen this art style before. You can tell it's hand drawn, and it's not just done by. It's done with care and a bit of creativity. And Daniela has been nothing short of amazing over the last year, especially when we went through our Kickstarter stuff as well. She made all these custom things for our page that now has also made it into the game as well subsequently. And everything we've asked her to make, she's gone above and beyond as far as what I could creatively come up with, and it's always looked amazing. So Daniela deserves a lot of credit here.
Yeah, it's sometimes funny when we brainstorm how to draw stuff. Like for the Kickstarter, we needed Steam keys, right? We were giving Steam keys to our backers, and so we needed a drawing of Steam key. So okay, let's draw an actual key like a Steam key. So and she just nailed it. It looks so amazing.
Yeah. All those small things you don't think about, but that you need, and so much thought and attention of detail has gone into it. When you really stop and look at the game, you can see all the detail there.
Yeah, no, it was really impressive actually when I was looking through the screenshots. Just the art, as you said, just kind of pops out at you at the screen and just instantly makes you interested in the game before actually learning anything else about it. So yeah, it's really, really, really nice. And can you just tell us a little bit about the music of the game, what kind of music you've implemented into it, and, what kind of role it played with the game?
Music was probably the most tricky part because I have absolutely zero background in music. I never learned to play any instrument. Like I listen to music. That's it. And so I was when I was making the game, I had to think, okay, what music do I put some not open source like free music in there, or well, I'd like something that fits the game. So I experimented with classical music that I like. I just took MIDI, changed up the instruments, the pitch and the tempo, and like I said, I have no experience with this, so it was like me just experimenting until it sounds good. That's actually what is in a game right now, but for a while now we've been set on getting the actual composer to make music for the game, like the proper original music, because what's in there is it's classical music, like it's the music from the 19th century, just remade by me. But hopefully the composer manages on time, and we'll have a brand new soundtrack for the release. And from what I've heard, it sounds amazing.
Yeah, music is one of my favourite parts of games in general. So I'm very excited to hear what comes from your game. The most important part, I guess, is when is the game releasing?
It is releasing August 20th on Steam. It'll be available for Windows to begin with, and then in a few months after that, we'll also be coming to mobile as well, which we just announced the other day as well for iOS and Android.
Yeah, that's exciting. Quite recent development, as you said, about going to mobile. What's that process been like for you?
For me, I have no experience with it, like zero. And when we were talking about, okay, this game could work on mobile, I was always like, okay, but I have to learn everything about it, like importing it, publishing it. I don't know. It will take a while for me to learn all this stuff. It might be better to find someone else who can do this for us. And yeah, that's pretty much what happened.
Yeah, we were doing some reach outs for bundles as we're getting ready for launch for Steam. Like, who can we bundle with that might be a similar game? And we reached out to some devs, and they, from what I heard secondhand, I got to say, this is from Clem because he's done all of this bit, so credit to Clem. But he did say that they were interested, but not in a bundle, but actually in developing the game for iOS and Android and porting it for us. And so we go back and forth, we make some agreements, we chat about it, they give us a timeline about what they're thinking. And that looks like closer to the end of the year. I'm not sure exactly because we haven't started development on it yet. We still need to finish the main build for Steam. But it's kind of come together quite quickly, but also quite excitingly because we wanted to do it at some point. We didn't think it would be this soon. So having another beat a few months after the PC release will be great.
My main idea for the mobile version was I don't want the game that has so many ads in it and I have to pay to get rid of the ads. And when these guys came to us, this was exactly what they said. Like, we don't like ads. We do it differently. Okay, let's go for it.
Yeah, exactly. There's the one thing to put you off any kind of mobile game is being plastered with adverts constantly. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely, 100% agree on that. Well, I'm excited to see how it's looking on mobile, and obviously on its release. I hope everything goes well for you with that. But just to end the interview, I always like to ask this question. I guess either of you could answer this, but what one word would you use to describe Feed the Scorchpot?
Is dopamine the right word?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, there are so many words you could like use. One word is really tough. Like, I want to go with the lame, like unique, because I think it is, but I feel like that's not quite the right word.
How about a feast?
A feast. Yeah, feastly. Yeah. We can go with that.
Hearing the journey both have taken in their separate ways was so inspiring, and it sounds like Feed the Scorchpot is shaping up to be a really fun and time-sapping game. Link to the game's Steam page can be found in the show description, as there is still time to add it to your wish list before it's released on August the 20th. and you'll also find a link to the game's Blue Sky account if you want to keep up with the game's latest developments. Before we move over to our second interview with Paul, I would just like to mention our Patreon. If you would like to support us, this would be the best way to do it. With just 2 tiers to choose from and a host of benefits waiting, it's the perfect time to join in. From early access to our work to a chance to write an article for the newsletter, we hope there is something here for everybody. With our lowest tier at £1 and our top at £4.50, we hope we've made our Patreon as accessible as possible. I still have some game codes to give away to anyone who signs up to any paid tier, including Blippo Plus, Thank Goodness You're Here, Ultros, and many more. A massive thank you goes out to our current patrons, John, Ruz, Keris, Antonia, Shy Guy Brian, Opera Queen, and Y. You guys rule, and we are incredibly lucky to have your support. Please check patreon.com/so-many-games to see everything we have to offer. A link can also be found in the show description. With that said, let's welcome Paul to the show and hear more on his work with QA testing in video games.
So, I'm Paul James. I've been doing a lot of QA in the indie scene for the last 5 years. It's taken me on a bit of a journey. Lots of different studios I've worked with, lots of different games across different platforms. And I'm quite keen to share what I've got here today.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to talk to you about QA in gaming, because I feel like it's a very unrepresented part of game development, really, but I also feel like it's a very important part of game development. Like I don't really hear from the people that are involved in QA for games, and I'm quite surprised at that, really. So knowing that that's what you do, I really wanted to get you on just to hear a little bit more about what's involved in QA, and yeah, just to learn more about what you guys actually do for a video game.
Yeah, that's music to my ears, because in a nutshell, you've sort of summed up the experience I've had. In that, yeah, QA is incredibly important. It's something that touches every part of development. It's not just finding bugs and trying to break the game. It's you get insight into design, into the writing, story, because it touches so many different areas. A lot of people don't realize that, and I think getting the word of how useful QA is out into the world is really important. So being on a podcast and you asking those, saying those things at the beginning, is really wonderful to hear, because you're absolutely quite right. It's not something that gets shouted about. I think it only becomes important to game developers when they've had good QA as part of their development. Before that, it's just, certainly in the indie scene, you see a lot of people ask for people to test, but it's a bit of a mix, because you'll have different people at different experience levels, and some people will want maybe to try a little bit of testing, but the feedback might not necessarily be what the developer's looking for, and it's a bit of a learning curve, I think, if you're just trying to test a game just to try it out. But when you get good QA, when you get good testing, that's when I think ultimately what the developer wants is the game to ship, be released to the public, and not break. Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, I think so, because with the way things are out in Steam land, certainly one bad review can really knock the stuffing out of a small indie development team's game, and you don't want any bugs at all if you can help it. But this is all the work that you don't see in the background. When a game ships and it looks wonderful, you don't see the QA, you don't see the testing in the background, you don't see the hard work that goes in. And it's quite a fascinating world to see. From my perspective, the game that I've seen at different stages is not always the game that ends out in the public, for players in general.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to touching upon a lot of what you just mentioned there. But I'd like to know how you kind of got into QA testing for games. How did you land yourself into this little world
Before I go off on a big long tangent, I'm going to try and keep it because it's an unusual journey. I think I didn't plan to start this and be where I am now. But whereas I think, what was I doing at the time? I'd gone back to university, so I work a full-time job, and I'd gone back to university to train as a mental health counsellor. And towards the end of that, and you know, you learn a lot of skills, very, very strong, good life skills that I'll carry forever. And also very useful when it comes to game development and keeping game devs on an even keel, because they will think, you know, why am I doing this? Why am I making a game? What a waste of time. And you have to encourage them and say, it's not counseling, I have to say that, but you know, it does help. But towards the end of that, COVID came along, priorities changed, and I've sort of qualified, but left that behind. And then I started playing video games again for the first time in years properly. You know, I had a lot of free time. A friend of mine introduced me to Kickstarter, which I had no idea about. And I'm very thankful to him for that because it set me off on a path. But I also am a little bit angry because Kickstarter is incredibly addictive. There are so many wonderful projects out there that I ended up backing pretty much everything. One of the things I did back was a point-and-click adventure game called Lucy Dreaming from Tall Story Games, and another game called Unsung Warriors, where one of the developers had released a different game called Decks and Daggers. And again, long story short, I'm playing Decks and Daggers, and I spot what I would describe as a potential grammatical change if I was to send some feedback back. And at this time, I'm still a player. Yeah, I'm just enjoying games. I'm not trying to test or anything. And game devs to me are gods. You know, they're wonderfully intelligent and creative people that give me a lot of entertainment and have done for many years. But I went back and forth. Should I tell this dev about this potential change? I did in the end. We struck up a conversation. He just said, if you spot anything else, if you could do any testing, that's great. Because indie developers, especially solo devs, they don't have much money, so they will take, I think, good help with good intentions wherever they can. And from that, I had a bit of a knack of finding ways to break games, and I broke that game. But I think I have a 3-stage plan where I'll play a game initially and I'm looking for player experience. And is it fun, or is it hitting the things it wants to do just as a game? Does it make sense, and all this kind of stuff? And then once I know what I'm supposed to do, the second run will be to try and do everything that it shouldn't do. And that's really fun because I get to try and really break it and see where the flaws are. I'm skipping ahead a bit there, but in tandem with that, I joined a very small team of beta testers on Lucy Dreaming. And that was my first real experience of writing out sort of bug reports and recording clips and going a bit more in depth into a game like that, where point and clicks, a lot can go wrong because there's a lot of different moving parts to that. And then from that, I started looking into game jams. I joined Discord groups. I was on social media. I discovered that there are a huge number of games that you can go out and put yourself forward for testing, really. And pretty much everybody will say yes, please, because they're in the same boat as most other solo devs. Again, is that the budget is quite low, and it built from there. And then I think I sort of twigged that it would be kind of cool if I could have my name in games. So I would ask for credits, and as each test ended, I'd also ask for a little bit of feedback. But I was looking for something constructive to improve my skills, and, you know, is there something that you didn't like that I could have done better? I'm quite open-minded like that. And I ended up getting really lovely testimonials back instead, because I realized that the work I was doing with all the detailed bug reports and everything was slightly different to what developers normally get. And all of this was sitting in inboxes and Discord messages. So I decided to create a website and stick them all on there as a place that people could go and have a look at. I'm no designer. It's a very humble website, but I just thought, try it out, you know, and that's kind of what I've done this whole time, is just try. Yeah. You don't have to be an expert at anything. Learn, be open-minded, ask questions, And I think being around these different studios and all the games, different types of games I've been so fortunate to be part of, I've picked up little bits of knowledge and experience along the way. And then other things have happened as time has gone on. So that's it. I don't think it's necessarily the the normal proper route, but I found that by saying yes to opportunities, by just trying to do my best, because the game devs are putting a lot of time, energy, love and care into this project. And I think whatever role you play within any team, if you can try and match that, then you're all doing your best. You're all working hard together. I think you're off to a great start from there.
Yeah, that's really, it's always cool to hear of someone getting into a profession or getting into something through a back door.
Yeah.
It's always a rewarding story at the end of the day to hear that. So it must be very cool for you.
Yeah.
So you started off with Lucid Dreaming, kind of got your foot in the door, and then what happened next?
Well, two things happened next. The first thing that I was aware of and that told me that I really wanted to do this was when the testing for Lucid Dreaming ended and it just stopped because the game was done. I felt incredibly sad. I was really miserable because I realized, I've had a lot of fun doing this. This is something that means something. I'm being creative. I'm helping in some way. So there was that. So that told me I was on the right path, I think, and I want more. And then the other thing that happened, and I had no idea how popular this game would be, was off the back of my website, I had a developer contact me saying, we've got this game called Blueprints that we'd like you to test. And I was like, yeah, absolutely, no problem at all. And I got into a little bit of a sort of not negotiation. No one has any budget, but I would say, if you like what I do, some kind of testimonial for my website, but only if you're happy with that, but definitely a credit, because I think you need something to, even if it's just to put on a portfolio or to build up experience and a bit of history. And I started testing Blueprints, and it's the only game out of every game I've tested so far where I forgot I was testing. I don't know if you've played Blueprints or if you're aware of it or not.
I know I'm very aware of Blueprints, but I've not dabbled into the world of the game. Not my cup of tea.
No,
Paul.
That's fair. Yeah, no, that's fair. And you're not the only person to have said that to me, actually. But yeah, it was the first project I've had where I just forgot I was testing. I just got completely lost. I had to catch myself and go, hold on, I'm supposed to be, doing a job here. But that went really well. And I had an absolutely wonderful testimonial off Tonda Ross, the developer. That went on the website and on the socials. And there's a lot of self-promotion here, which I'm not particularly good at, but I try. And it's grown from there. I think the next big one that I spent a lot of time on was Foolish Mortals. That's another point-and-click adventure game. And currently I'm helping on a game called Urbex Warriors with Tony Warriner and Stu Cambridge, who of Beneath Steel Sky and Cannon Fodder from way back when. And that's
again from the past.
Yeah. And these, and you know what? Going back to my earlier point of learning and being around different people and so on, I whenever I'm around these two experts in their fields, really, I'm sitting and I'm just listening to what they're saying. And all I really did was I just struck up a conversation with them and said, I do some testing. I'd be happy to help out. And it's gone on from there. There are more projects that I've been part of, but in a nutshell, that is the journey so far. Those are probably the highlights, I think. And Cryptmaster, actually, because I went to Adventure X early on, and it's a wonderful convention. I was listening to your other podcast recently with Sally Beaumont.
Oh, right, yes.
Yeah, and it was really interesting to hear her talk and her connection to Adventure X as well. Mm. And Lee Williams, one of the devs behind Cryptmaster, was there. And we just struck up a conversation. I contacted him about some testing. And these are all very small teams. And I think that's probably why they work so well, because there aren't multiple layers to get through. It's just someone has an idea. Everybody has a voice. And whether that idea goes forward or not, you have the opportunity to share and be part of a team. And it works very well in that respect.
You mentioned a minute ago about your 3-stage plan when it comes to looking, when you first start a new game for testing. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what your 3-stage plan is?
Yeah, it was the pattern that came up the most for every project, because when I started, I was just testing and sending bugs back to developers. And then over time, although most developers work in a slightly different way, the core is the same. And they would always start off with, can you play the game and just play it? Like, by all means, note stuff as you go along. That's fine. But I want to know, are you enjoying it? Does it make sense? Can you do everything that you want to do? Things like that. So just play the game, player experience. And then the second stage is, I now know what I'm supposed to do. So try and do everything that I'm not supposed to do. And that, for me personally, is the really fun part, because that's when I will find bugs. So skipping areas or doing things backwards, or trying to solve one puzzle ahead of the other. Just absolutely anything you can think of that is out of the ordinary. And then the third stage is usually just when you found bugs in stage 2, you then go and they're all fixed between stage 2 and 3. You go back and you just make sure that the things that have been fixed haven't broken anything else. And by that point, I should be able to get through the game pretty quick, because I've played it a few times, I'd imagine, by then. And I can just make sure that, okay, that was broken, it's fixed now. However, has it broken anything else? And that generally is the pattern throughout all the different projects I've worked on that shines through the most. And it just so happened to be the one that sticks and works well.
Like when you receive a new game, or you get put onto a new game, and you start playing the game and it's turning into a bit of a stinker, does a little bit of you inside you die a little bit when you think you've got to try and get through a whole game that might be a bit of a slog?
What an excellent question. Yes, is the honest answer. And I'm not going to say which ones, obviously, but yeah, there have been some. It's a bit like it's a bit like when I've reported stuff back that's obviously wrong and hasn't been implemented. And that's frustrating, especially when they say we've done everything. That's even worse, actually, when they say they've done everything that they that are fed back and they obviously haven't. But yeah, there's only one game where I've started the test and I realized I'm just not going to enjoy this at all. I've already got a preconceived idea in my head, and this will affect not the standard and quality of testing, but I won't be able to give you an objective response, almost neutral response, actually. So there's only one game I've sort of said thank you, but no thank you. But yeah, that there's been a stinker, and it is difficult. But sometimes I just ignore that player experience bit and I just concentrate on finding bugs. So there is a way past it. It doesn't happen very often. What a truly wonderful question. Yes.
I was just curious, like, do you have the option to walk away then? Like if it...
Yeah. Because especially in the beginning, I was doing a lot of this testing for free to build up the portfolio. And I still do that occasionally from time to time. With indie devs that have no budget, but I can see that they've got a project and they just need a little bit of help and I can give it, then yeah, because if I've got a couple of evenings free, especially if it's a demo, demos are really easy. You can fly through them and do 3 or 4, 5 runs in an evening because they're usually quite short. Because the community has given me so much already, this is my way of giving something back. And everybody's at different levels of experience or development. But yeah, I think sometimes I sign an NDA. Sometimes I'll say to devs, for peace of mind, know that I won't say anything, just as a standard. But so that you are very clear, I will I won't repeat anything or share anything without your prior consent. Would you like me to sign an NDA? I would say probably about 30% of the time they say yes. Otherwise, they just trust me at my word. So, it works the other way then as well. Like if I just go, you know what, I don't think this is working out in a professional, nice way, I'll just say, you know what, I don't think you're going to get the best from me at this particular point. It'd probably be best if I step away. But I'm also mindful that they are human beings with feelings. So if I were to suddenly say that, they might go, "Oh my gosh, my game is rubbish." So I just try and find a diplomatic and good way to step away from the game without.
That's a great fallback. So when you do end up on a game that you're struggling because it's not very good, you've got that nice safe fallback just to get yourself out of that one.
Yeah, and I've also played games that have been not that good at the beginning, but I can see the potential there, and with a few changes. And again, that's QA is not just the bug finding. It's if you've got a good team, they will listen to what you have to say, and then that's when you move into a bit of the design, because you say, okay, well, this works in that way, but have you considered just expanding that a step or two? Maybe you could do this. And I have so many conversations where I'll suggest something, and that something won't go into the game, but it'll spark a conversation amongst the team, and they'll enhance it, and they'll build from that. And that's just great team collaboration. So that there are, sometimes there are games that aren't that great, but they just need a little tweak here or there. Sometimes I have to just have faith in that.
When we arranged this meeting, I've reached out to our patrons to see if they had any questions for you in regards to games and QA. And I said to you off recording that it was some of the most questions I've had back to ask a guest on the podcast. So it was really cool to see the enthusiasm to find out more about games or QA in gaming. So I've got 4 questions for you. So I want to start with a question from Martin. His question is, I know lots of people treat the profession as a stepping stone to another position within game development, or used to treat it as such and then sort of get stuck doing it. He's curious to know more about your view on that subject in the QA.
Yeah, it absolutely right. I think people try to do something like QA to get into a studio or a job or something like that, and then they go on to build from that. Well, I think a lot of the people who talk to me when they talk about testing, the word that comes up, and I mentioned this before we recorded, is they use the word niche. In what I do, not many people do. I'm not part of a studio. I'm an independent, and I'm very passionate about QA and pushing it. And just, I'm not going to be a spokesperson for it. That's not really who I am. But where I can help bring attention to QA and how important it is, I will happily always have a conversation with anybody who's got questions on it. I think people would view it as a stepping stone. I see too many examples where QA is sort of looked over. You certainly don't see it at awards ceremonies, things like that. No one says congratulations on QA. Certainly, it's not deemed as important as it could be, and that's a real shame, because it's something that really is there throughout development. And you might have voice actors or artists or anyone with a wonderful discipline like that who will come in for a set amount of time. But with QA, you're there for the whole journey, all the way through, and you can really influence how the game turns out. And that's certainly been my experience. I would love to see someone who just wants to be in QA and to see how far they can go, because it's quite lonely here, if I'm honest. But you get to meet so many wonderful people along the way, and I think it's an underestimated discipline for sure. That's a really good question. Thank you.
Do you view it as a stepping stone? Is there do you have an urge, I guess, probably not the right word, to progress in game development to something else, or are you quite happy within what you're doing now?
I mean, I've been doing this for about 5 years, and I feel like I've probably gone as far as I can in the indie scene. That's fine. It's at a level I like, and there's always work to be done. I have a passion for writing, and I feel like design is also something I'd like to do. I imagine that the QA stuff will continue. I'll deviate some of my spare time towards writing and design, and then it, I mean, it sounds like I'm going to make a game, doesn't it?
It
Long
does.
term, yeah, yeah, and I probably will. I probably will, but I don't know that I don't know that I have the will for it. I've seen so many people, like some people just go, "I'm going to make a game," and then it's hard work. It really is hard work.
It's very hard. I admire anybody who produces a finished game, whether it's bad or good. Well, whatever you've ended up with, it's still a big kudos to you.
Absolutely.
For getting to that stage. It's amazing.
Yeah. Could not agree with you more. It's so I would say I'm going to carry on with QA. I enjoy it. I've made so many wonderful friends along the way as well. And writing and design I've got a bit of a passion for. So that's probably the next step. And then what's that? Halfway there, maybe, towards making a game.
Just got to sort out the coding,
Yeah, just
bit,
that. Yeah. That scares me, that stuff. But I'll give it a go.
For our next question, Keris comes in and she says, I help review documentation for engineers and feedback things that I think may confuse our field guys, especially without English as a first language. It's very frustrating when this feedback is ignored and I deal with questions about it over and over. Are there any particular experiences where this is the same when working in QA for games? Things that you just know will end up with scratched heads from players, which have been ignored despite a simple change to the text, as it were?
Yes, and another good question. So there's two things to this. I fed back all kinds of stuff over the years, and I always tell myself not to take it personally if it gets ignored, because it's the developer's game. They make the final decision. And despite all of my hard work and effort, they might just say, you know what, Paul, no, we're going to stick to what it is. And that's fine. I've made my peace with that. Generally speaking, most people do listen to what I have to say. Bottom line, for those that have not and then chipped the game, when the thing that I said would happen happens, I don't say anything. I just sit there going, I did tell you, this is why you test. This is why I give all this detailed feedback. Yes, it is frustrating, especially when you've tried so hard to explain something and you can see what is going to happen if it's not fixed or remedied. Those are the two things. I don't take it personally because it's not. Although I'm part of that team, I'm part of the game at the time. It's not my final decision, and they have to face the consequences if it doesn't. That's just the reality of it all in my mind.
Bit of a shame, really, because if they're asking for your advice and looking for guidance on their game and they don't listen, and then it ends up being broken because they didn't listen to you. It's just quite close-minded, really, isn't it? Which is a shame. Especially in this oversaturated market that we've got now, where there's so many games coming out, they're all vying for our attention. You've got to release your game in the best possible condition, I believe, in this day and age. I think it's really important. If it was my game, I'd be doing everything that my QA tester would be telling me to do.
If it comes down to things like I don't know, character development, right? And it's been written in a certain way, and I was to say, I don't think the character would say this. That's not really my place. That's more of a writer's creative character arc sort of thing. But if I go and it's something technical and it's this game is going to break because of this thing, then and they ignore it. That's frustrating. Thankfully, I've only ever seen it once. And my response was, well, I mean, I didn't say this to the developer. I'm not looking for a fight or anything, but I did think, yeah, should have listened to me. Is it because with Steam? I've touched on this before. With we need good reviews, yeah. And unfortunately, you can have. I've seen some silly reviews where they'll say this was a great game, but this tiny thing was broken and it messed up my game, so I have to give it a negative review. So you've got to get it right, and I agree with you. If you were making a game, you've got to make sure that you've done your level best, your absolute best, to try and get that as perfect as you possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, especially for those early Steam reviews, because they can be some of the most important, especially at a game's release. So no, it's really, really, really important. Next question comes from Brian. He would love to hear what are some of the common bugs or issues that you find in early builds of games.
Oh, good question. It depends on the type of game. Point and click games, it sounds so silly, but actually when the voiceover goes in and it doesn't match the text on screen, and this is one of the questions I ask developers. So I've did some testing on Old Skies, Lucid Dreaming, Foolish Mortals. There's probably a couple of others that don't come to mind, but I always ask this question: when you put the voiceover in, do you want the voiceover to exactly match the text on screen? And I ask this question because the answer is different. I'm not going to say who does what, but some people will say, no, we don't really mind as long as the words on screen match the sort of context. So it might be the words on screen are, how are you? But the character says, are you okay? Now, to me personally, as a player, I would like it to match. But for some devs, they don't care. It's just that's the context. You're asking a similar question. That's okay. Other people are exact to the point where they want the uhs and the and all of that to match exactly. So there's a lot of work in that. So there's, I wouldn't say those are bugs. That's sort of something that comes up a lot. But if we stick with point and click games, adventure games, it's when you play the game the first time, you know how everything works. You follow the puzzles and you work out the game and so on. On the second playthrough, and I advise every developer to do this, this is not something I do, is try and speedrun it. Try and skip sections, because it's all very linear and it's all very sensible and things follow a pattern. But if you try and skip something, you're more likely to break the whole game, because the sort of pathways to that particular area. I had one, I've just finished, it came up actually, just finished a test on Sleepy Time Village, and I was trying to skip a particular part because I thought, I actually don't think I need to go there. And thankfully, they'd already done the work to make sure that didn't happen. But potentially you could skip an entire scene, an entire piece of narrative of the story, and the bit you're trying to get to by skipping that wouldn't make any sense. So there's some things like that. Different bugs that come up. Urbex Warriors is going to be on the Spectrum Next, Mega Drive, and Amiga, and that's a sort of top-down shooter. So very different type of game. And there was you sort of run around an area with walls and monsters coming out of different sort of holes in the ground, and you're trying to shoot them and all that. For some reason, there was what I called an invisible block that would appear if someone collected a coin. And that was really difficult to find in the end, because we were putting the demo out and people would soft lock themselves in a little area. It was always happening in the same place. Doesn't look good, and they can't complete the demo. And I spent a long time trying to work out what that was, and it didn't matter what the item was. This would happen in any particular area. Is if you ran, I described it as going down a supermarket aisle, and you're continuously moving, but as you're moving, you're trying to grab a tin of beans off the shelf, all at the same time. And it was the same thing with this, any item, whether it was a piece of fruit or a coin or a weapon or whatever. If you did that and just clipped it on the edge at a particular point, it would create a block that would, and you couldn't see, it was invisible. It's like an invisible barrier that would appear at the next available free space. That came up. That was a difficult one to find. I don't think I've probably answered the question in that, what are the most common bugs, because I think my point is that depending on the type of game I'm playing will depend on the type of bug that is more likely to appear than in this Urbex Warriors, it's more about something appearing and getting in the way, whereas with adventure games like the ones I've mentioned, it's more about making sure that the narrative path stays intact. I think, I kind of have to flex what I'm looking for depending on the type of game I'm testing.
Have you come across bugs that just make you laugh like hard?
Oh yeah. Like things like what was it? Yeah, giant characters on screen, randomly clicking stuff, because that's part of the boring part of QA, is just randomly clicking different areas and making sure that things. They're usually things in the background that you wouldn't think to even bother doing. Like no one's going to really find it, but I know it's there somewhere, so I want to make sure again it's a perfect looking game. But yeah, I've had a character on screen. That's the main character I'm controlling. And then I'll be clicking randomly, and another triple-sized version of that character would then just appear on screen next to it. Or floating characters, that's another one that comes up from time to time. Yeah, just funny stuff like that you just I don't expect. But they're hiding there somewhere. It's kind of fun when you can send a message back to the dev going, I can create your main character in extra large form.
Just like capital letters. Watch this. It's hilarious.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Because I think that's one of the things that I've seen around sometimes when someone finds just like a player even finds like some like random bug that just actually ended up being really funny. And I just wonder if that's quite a rare instance or whether it does actually happen all the time.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's when I don't think any game really ships completely bug free. What we can hope for is that what is left is incredibly, and there's that word again, niche. And the players who do find those sort of really rare and random ones are the ones that have probably played the game half a dozen times and they know everything. And this is what we do as in QA and testing. We will play the game over and over and over again and just whittle down what we haven't done yet. Have I tried that yet? No, not yet. Okay, let's try it now. And that's when it comes up with players as well.
Yeah, because I get that sense as well. It's like a needle in a haystack finding some of these bugs. You're just not going to find them. And I know it's surprised even the developers that are like, I just didn't anticipate that happening or that occurring. And I don't know how that's happened, but it has. And I think that kind of marvels me in a way with coding and game development, that there's so many unknown outcomes to making a game that it can even surprise the person that spent the most time making it, and that marvels me in a lot of ways that happens.
Yeah, it definitely does. And it's I think with QA it's a bit of a love-hate relationship really, because when I say I'll test, or anybody says they'll test, they're like, fantastic, brilliant, excellent. And then if you're doing it properly, you're essentially crushing their dreams, right? You're taking all of their hard work and then tearing it up and handing it back. And you give them all of the steps of how you did that, how you got there. And then, they love you again when the game ships and all those bugs are sorted out. But sometimes I find stuff and I'm not even trying. It's just there in the background. And also, this is why I think certainly at some level of development, you need to open the testing to a slightly larger pool of people. Not everybody. I've seen games, they open it to the public and they've got thousands and thousands of people. I have no idea how they sort of control that feedback or spend time going through it. I think if you're looking, depending on what you probably want a team of about 12, I reckon. I think you want some core people at the beginning just to get things started and to kind of get all the most obvious things that they're going to find. And then for a player experience and all the other stuff, once you can play it from start to finish, I would say about a dozen people would be enough. And it can be of any kind of level of experience as well. You can have people who have been testing for years and people who are just trying it out, because they will all have different approaches to playing the games. Yeah. And they will find things or think of ways to do stuff that you as the developer or anybody on that core team would just not even think to do. And it's really, really important. Really important.
What was the biggest bug that you found on Blueprints?
The biggest bug on Blueprints, it was really clean when I played it. Really, really clean. I found a flickering window that no one would have noticed. It was just because and again, this is one I found kind of accident, because I was admiring the artwork of the game and I happened to see a little flickering window. That's all it was. And then I think, and this was quite a common one found by a few people, you could walk through a door and go out of bounds. But no, I mean, it had already been in development for about 3 years by the time I joined, and I joined probably about a year before release. So it's I was one of the later people to join, but yeah, it was very clean by the time I got there.
So you didn't manage to break it?
No, not really. No.
You sound disappointed.
Yeah, because I do try my best, and there's a little bit of pride. Again, I hand back this crumpled bit of love that they've put into the game, and I said, I'm really, really sorry, but I've broken it. But secretly, I know I've done my job.
Next question comes from fellow So Many Games writer Stephen, and he just wants to know about AI usage and the importance of human-led QA teams.
Yeah, I'm not going to say which game this is, but I have walked away from a project that I found out had used AI in it. And at the time, it just didn't occur to me that people would be. I didn't realize at all. So I'd done a little bit of testing, probably for a couple of weeks, actually, put a lot of time into it. And then I had a conversation, discovered that some AI artwork had been put into the game. And this was actually really lovely, because I do believe that they hadn't really considered why using AI, in my mind, is a negative. And we had a very adult, good conversation about our views on it, because there's a lot of people who don't really understand what it is or why people dislike using AI in video games. And there's a bit of, and even though this person was in development, I think there's an education piece out there. I see a lot of things on social media where use AI because of this, don't use AI because of that. But there's also a lot of people outside of the game dev world who just think using AI is a quick way to get something. They don't understand where all this information is being pulled from. Specifically with art, as I understand it, lots of actual human created art is put out on the internet. It gets ripped, put into AI, and then regurgitated out as something else. And these people who've put the work in do not get compensation for that. That's terrible. I'm just dead against it. But so when it comes to game development and testing, if there's even a hint of AI, I will state my case politely, have a proper conversation. If there's a bit of education or understanding that's needed, do that. But I'll walk away from it. I think creatively, AI is never going to be as good as human creation. Personally, I think there's a magic and an innocence, and I don't know what the word is, but there's something pure when it comes from a human, as opposed to, put in a prompt into AI and you've got probably a very beautiful looking image, but it's fake. There's no heart to it. There's no hard work. There's no love there. I think that's how, well, I think you can tell I feel quite strongly about that. I've only had one project where AI's use has been part of development, and I just had a good conversation and I walked away. I since found out then that person removed all the AI, employed an actual artist, and has educated themselves on what it's all about. So that's a different story that you don't really hear. It's like people are very yes or no, but there's somewhere in between. Like, let there be an educational piece. Let people have an opportunity to learn and correct, in my view, what they were doing wrong in the first place.
Yeah, it's something you hear often when it comes to AI, where people don't really think about how it's used, and and one of the big reasons AI is very much hated because of all the reasons you've stated, but it's just putting people out of work. Yes, I mean, I appreciate, where a lot of indie game developers are on tight budgets, but if AI wasn't there, what would you have done originally? And doing that is better than using AI in your game. And I think it's quite positive in some ways, where using AI now feels dirty, I think, for a lot of people, and if you get found out and you don't disclaim it, then you're in trouble. But then if you do come out and say you've used it, you're in trouble, and people are going to hate you either way. So, this is my hope with AI, is that there's a certain yuckiness now to using AI, and that I'm hoping that it continues to dwindle because of that labeling, that they'll hopefully it'll turn into like the next Bitcoin or NFTs or whatever, and it will eventually, hopefully, or 3D TVs, it'll eventually just dwindle away into nothingness, and we can all just get on and have all our people in work not damage the environment, and not plagiarize other people's work. I think that would be back to at least some kind of wonderful times.
Yeah.
As you can see, I'm quite passionate about hating AI. I mean, that's why on so many games, we state we're 100% AI free, because if I found out any of our writers used AI in their reviews, then I would not be happy.
No, and I think I agree with everything you said. I think you've said it very well. I know where I stand with it. So, like I said before, if there's a game that I'm working on, and there's AI in it, then I'll walk away. I won't touch it.
Like, maybe like a year ago, say, was there any concerns that you might not, might get pushed out of the industry because people would use AI more for QA testing, or did you never have that feeling or fear?
No, it's never really entered my mind, actually, because maybe it's because I've worked mostly in the independent circle, and I find, I can't remember who said this, so it's not an original comment from me, but everybody's trying to help each other, right? And it's almost as if once one person succeeds, they're going to bring everybody with them. And I think with QA and AI, everybody that I've spoken to, we're all of the same opinion, that we just don't want any part of it, to be quite honest. I haven't really spoken to or it's never really come up, Jason. I have to say, I've been quite fortunate with that. I don't think anyone I'm aware of has ever gone, we've done some testing with AI and now we'd like you to see if you can pick up anything else. And they're again, all the developers I've worked with, they're very clear on no AI. I see it on their socials quite a lot. So yeah, no, I haven't really had that experience, actually. I've been very fortunate, I think.
Well, thanks to Martin, Keris, Brian and Stephen for your excellent questions. Really, really enjoyed those. And Paul, just to finish the interview, I really wanted to ask you if there was a dream game that you wished you'd ever had the chance to QA test.
I am a massive fan, and always have been, of games like World of Warcraft and Diablo. That would be amazing. I've heard I can get lost in those games. I mean, we're essentially talking Blizzard, aren't we? yeah, all the Diablo games from the beginning captured my imagination. Warcraft from the beginning as well. Yeah, a little testing gig. Even now, something, a little side quest, put something else in like that. Yeah, those are the games that really pop into my head. That yeah, very, very quick answer there. Yeah, big fan of those franchises. So if I could have tested, I mean, they're still going. There's always a chance.
There's always a chance. Diablo 5, here he comes.
That'd be great.
Learning more about the work carried out in QA makes me even more appreciative of this side of game development, and I'm thrilled Paul joined me to highlight these unsung heroes and the work that they do. If you'd like to keep up with Paul and his work, then the best way would be to follow him on Blue Sky. You can find a link in the show description, and I'd just like to thank Josh, Jakub and Paul for spending some of their free time speaking with me about their work. I hope you enjoyed this double feature episode, and I'd love to hear your feedback, especially if you'd like more in this format. Let me know on the Discord, on Patreon, Blue Sky or email. And before I leave you, I would just like to remind you all that we have a Discord server where you can chat to the So Many Games crew and other like-minded people on video games, life and our work. We'd love for you to be a part of our community, so do come and say hello and let us know what you've been playing. Don't forget to check out somanygames.co.uk, which is full of amazing reviews, articles and interviews. Thank you for listening, and until next time, please take care out there and happy gaming.